Homie Christ evil, nice. Birthday boy, birthday girl, birthday boy, birthday girl, birthday boy, birthday girl. Homie Christ evil, nice.
Oh, it's getting lit in here. Now I want this song at my next birthday party. Is there a way we can see like the YouTube comments?
Yeah, I'm gonna find the YouTube comments now. How do we do that?
I think Marx would have won to this.
Yes.
3 watching. Hi. Oh, yeah. Look at it, you can't get coffee on it.
It's his 201st birthday.
201?
Yeah.
Wow.
For those joining online, we're only going to be playing this song for a second,
Yeah,
and then we're going to be going on the air.
Yeah, because we do like a radio show at the university we attend. We gotta wait for that to start for this dope song to end. Happy fucking birthday, girl. Good shit. I should share the live stream on Twitter
Yeah.
with my friends.
Yeah. Oh shit, I just realized, because we started this off with this song, YouTube's probably going to take it down because this song's probably copyrighted. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I'll edit it out and then repost it later.
Oh, I gotta retweet it. Theory feed. I have a direct message.
Yeah, get in there with those happy birthday emojis.
Should have party hats and streamers.
This is always a party hat.
Oh, true.
I admit we did not prepare for this.
No, it's okay.
But no one else is doing it.
Yeah.
Selection, so. Okay. We should, does it go for another 10 minutes? No, it's basically
No,
over.
this
Okay.
song's.
Okay, perfect.
Well,
Welcome!
hello,
And welcome, everybody.
everyone. Welcome
So
to the New Civilization Project podcast. Today's episode is special. Why, Dave?
because it is Karl Marx's birthday.
Birthday! Woo!
Happy 201, Papa
Yeah,
Marx.
Papa Marx.
Yeah.
Why else is it special? What are we doing
We're also
that
doing-
the listeners cannot D.
We're also doing a live stream so that people can just pop in from YouTube if they so desire.
Hear us talk about very important things.
Oh, so I just realized I have no volume on the air.
You
Literally
don't?
none at all.
Oh, I turned on the wrong.
Oh wait.
I turned on the wrong microphone because you're
now
saying
I'm
at
on.
mic
I was like,
3.
why am I not hearing myself?
I know I couldn't hear you either.
Okay,
We
so
fixed
for
it.
the list. Okay, now the people on YouTube heard me the whole time, but the people on
the radio
did not hear me.
Sorry, I
so
did not turn on Dave's mic. That is
so hello
my
everybody
bad.
in the listening audience. Boise Pulse Radio. Happy to be here with you all. I go by Theory on the show, and you're joined by Ann. This is New Civilization Project podcast, but this is the Theory Plebe YouTube channel, and I wanted to do a live stream just because it's been a long time. I've been sick for literally 3 weeks.
We've both been sick for like 3 weeks. Yeah, sorry for like coughing and sneezing the whole time.
Still am sick. But you know, it's Marx's birthday, so
we had to celebrate.
We had to do it because you know he was always sick and he kept working. So whatever.
He's my inspiration, actually.
Yay! I see lots of cool people in the comments. So if you're listening and you're like, well, how do I listen to this on YouTube so I can get into that live chat? Then here you go. You go to Theory Plebe on YouTube. Theory is spelled like theory, and plebe is spelled wrong with 2 E's in a row.
P-L-E-E-B.
Yeah, that's right. And then you can just get in the chat there. And if you want to call into the show, let's just say that you were on YouTube, but you're like, I just want to call into the show. And well, then you could do that at, let's see, it's
208-426-1003. That is the call-in number, 208-426-1003. If you want to talk to us in real life.
So I don't have we didn't prepare anything for this. It was kind of helter-skelter. We've been running around like crazy trying to catch up with things after the trip last week. We went to Portland, and still sick, by the way, still sick. And then trying to graduate. I went into my program director's office and she shook my hand and she told me, congratulations, you've passed, you're graduating with your master's, everything is done. How does it feel to finally be here? And then the next morning I got an email from her saying, actually, you're shot at 3 credits and you won't be able to graduate. And so it's just been a crazy week, and I got all that stuff figured out, but it was stressful and it's been crazy. So there you go.
Yes. And I'm preparing for finals, which is crazy.
That Vox of God
thing is very spooky and ear hurting.
Was that just the song that was playing?
Was that the song? I don't know. What do you mean? River
Ransom.
Because we want to make sure no one's ears are hurting for this very special podcast.
I hope. Anyway, all right. So
yeah.
The thing that I'm excited to talk about, though, is what Marx means for different people. Obviously, for some people, Marx is the equivalent of Hitler because they can't tell the difference between a philosopher who never fought in a war and a soldier who never read philosophy.
Seriously.
Who became a totalitarian dictator. But oh wait, my mic went staticky. Oh, I'm sorry. What? Why would my mic go staticky on YouTube when?
Yeah, we're like on the air.
This is not on there. Unless
is the sound okay right now, y'all? Is it okay?
We're gonna go with.
It's all good now. Thank you.
Okay.
Cool.
Thanks, Callie. Okay, so for those who didn't know, we were the YouTube live stream comment section. There was some audio glitching when I was talking at some point, and it was probably just because I was so excited about Marx's birthday.
Talk about Marx and his birthday.
Breaking microphones over here.
Alienated labor.
Oh, Mikey, what's up?
Hey.
Mikey's one of the people who I guess I would have gotten into Marx without Mikey, but maybe not as much or maybe not as fast. And let's talk about that. And people in the chat, if you want to write a paragraph, something longer that we'll read off we'll read it off. So
we're
how did you
talking
hear about
how
Marx?
did we
How did you
hear
learn about Marx?
Marx?
How's your journey coming to? How did you find out he wasn't just Hitler?
That he wasn't like Stalin's, father.
Yeah. So I'll start with my story. When I was going to North Idaho College, I was the president of the philosophy club at the time, and we were tabling, just trying to recruit people on campus, and we had philosophy books all over this table, and we were just out there having a good time. And one of the big power brokers on campus, I guess he's in a lot of positions of power, very tall, intimidating white male who goes to a lot of these board meetings and like reams people and stuff like that. I didn't know a lot about him at the time, but he came up to us and, oh, you're the philosophy club, we heard about you, I heard that you're promoting leftist ideas, and that you're anti-Christian. And I was personally offended at the time because I wasn't very left. I considered myself more of a centrist than more of a maybe sort of libertarian person or something like that. And I just remember being like, "What are you talking about? Because we are open to different ideas and we have different, we're not dogmatic in our approach or whatever." And he was just like, "Well, you might want to just think more about how balanced you're being or whatever." And then he left. And that was like the last event we'd had of the semester. And we spent the whole summer thinking about, what the hell, man? Like, we basically just got threatened from someone who's on the board of trustees at our college. And I wanted to do something that would just really piss him off. And I was so irritated about it. And I had never read Marx at this point, but I had a professor who I respected, who I knew he liked Marx. And so I got to him, I was like, what, would you like to do a series on Marx in the fall? And we had like this vision, and we did this, where the first day everyone comes back onto campus in the fall, there were posters, abnormally large posters. We spent extra money to print these posters out really large of Marx's face, giant posters with Marx's face in color all over campus.
That's great.
That said free pizza.
That's how you get them.
Yeah.
They're not going to come for the content.
No, we had like 85 people show up, which is insane for.
Oh my gosh.
And so anyway, the thing was, I had no idea. I had not encountered Marx except in passing in any of my classes, except in one where the conservative professor had basically, this professor is great, by the way, for being like, we're going to read the actual text of the authors and try to use the principle of charity. He was like that with everybody except with Marx. When it came to Marx, we had like a cheat sheet, and it was just a summary of the Communist Manifesto, and we didn't actually have to read it. He just summarizes that, well, for Marx, history is like a train ride to a utopia, and it's going to take the dictatorship of the proletariat to get there. And I was just like, well, that's stupid, because that does sound stupid.
A little bit.
And then well, thankfully, because we organized this event, then I actually ended up reading Marx. And there you go. I read The Strange Labor and Wage, Labor, and Capital and Excerpts of Capital all in that semester. And it was probably a few years in the making that I was just like, I didn't consider myself a leftist, didn't consider myself a Marxist. But the one thing that reading those things had done for me was, on the one hand, planted the seed of the idea of time energy, which I just put up that video last week. And
great video. And
just because of labor power, right? And me having been in the labor field for a lot over 10 years, I was like, this resonates very strongly with me. But on the other hand, and I'd say this was the most powerful thing that reading Marx myself did, was it made me realize how full of crap other people can be when they talk about him, where they say, oh, well, he just says this and he just says that. And it's like, I read a couple of essays and I know that you're full of crap. So
yeah,
it's that. Without that, I don't know. I feel like I could have bought into a lot more BS.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
How about you, Ann?
So, in high school, I knew that I hated capitalism. I didn't know why, but I just knew. I'm like, capitalism sucks. People are being exploited. I kind of knew what was going on, but not really. But in high school, I didn't do much reading. I didn't know. I knew the name Marx. They talk about it when you learn about the Russian Revolution and Marxism. But in high school, at least where I'm from in Reno, Nevada, they don't actually teach you about Marxism. At least they didn't while I was there. So I showed up to college just knowing like I don't like Democrats, I don't like Republicans, I hate capitalism, and I don't know what to do from there. So I actually found Dave's club, Theory's Club, NSP, New Civilization Project, which is like for those listening and for those on YouTube, the Critical Theory and Social and Political Philosophy Club here on campus. And so I was like, yes, I'm so interested. I want to learn more. I didn't really know where to start with any of this. And so I read just some like basic texts that Dave showed me, and I did a lot of the readings that NSP was doing. And finally, we got to Wage, Labor, and Capital, and I was like, yes, it is time. My time has come to read some Karl Marx. So I read Wage, Labor, and Capital, and it like a light bulb went off. I was like, this is it. This is like all the things I was thinking. It's like here on paper, and I know why like capitalism sucks now.
For those who don't know, Wage, Labor, Capital might be one of the best places for the most condensed version of Marx's arguments, because it's kind of what he's going to develop through all 3 volumes of Capital in one essay. It's kind of him setting up for that project. Obviously, a lot comes out in the development of Capital that's not in Wage, Labor, and Capital, but Wage, Labor, and Capital has so much.
I feel like it's a good starting point. Like if I were to just, get this 1,000-page book and go, I'm going to read that, it would be overwhelming. So to start with something that's so easy to grasp was like really good starting point. Then we read a few weeks later, we read Estranged Labor. And then this semester, I've taken 2 sociology classes. And in both of those classes, Karl Marx is like one of the main first sociologist, one of the most important ones. So we talked about him a little bit in like the introduction to sociology class, and in my like classical sociologist, we really got into Marx. So I've read some of like the German ideology, a little bit of the manifesto, some more of Estranged Labor. I definitely have more to read. I want to eventually read Capital. I haven't read the full manifesto, the Communist Manifesto, but I feel like for my age and for where I'm at, I have a good like base understanding that's already helped me like articulate the problems that I see, kind of helped me study. And yeah, so I'm really happy that I've read it.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm just so above, I'm not above, like ahead of so many people.
You think you're above?
I'm not
people?
above.
I'm just...
No, I did not mean that. No, I'm going to get canceled now. No, just like, I feel so ahead of the game because I feel like, a year ago, I did not know the name Karl Marx very well. I didn't know who he was. So, yeah.
I'm gonna read off a couple of the comments here. What J.D. Forrester said something a second ago that I wanted to read. Oh, sort of like Jordan Peterson's intro to the debate he had with Zizek. Yeah. So I already broke my New Year's resolution to not give Peterson any more attention because I totally watched that debate. But also, that's kind of what I do with New Year's resolutions. I just break them. So
don't we all?
I was also going to be keeping up on my Duolingo. I didn't do that either. So anyway, yeah, the thing about the Peterson / my conservative in college, professor's critique of the manifesto is that it seems kind of absurd. It's like when you take the most Hegelian, most idealistic philosopher like element of Marx's thought, and then fetishize that into its like, oh well, that Marxism is just this belief in the history is a train on this pathway towards utopianism, and we just have to have a dictatorship to get there, a dictatorship led by workers, and only a few of those workers, obviously, because it'll be a vanguard. And it doesn't take much looking at that to be like, well, there's a problem there. But I think that for those who haven't heard this, but everyone else has probably heard this too many times, it's just that there's Marx, like the philosopher, economist, sociologist, historian, and you can take him on his own terms there, or on the terms of those fields, and you can evaluate them according to the terms of those fields. where he's going to have his strengths and weaknesses. Or then there's like the sort of religious orthodox Marxism where it's like you're trying to, you know, I have the right interpretation of Marx, and Marx had it all figured out, and that's basically all we need to do is read Marx properly, and if everyone would just read Marx, we'd all know it's
all be fine.
yeah, we'd all have it taken care of now. No. So I don't know. I'm not
I
a fan of that.
wish more people read Marx though. I
Yeah.
wish it was in like everyone's, introduction classes or like foundation classes on a college campus.
It's high school.
When
it should be.
I went home over winter break, I went and said hi to my old history teacher, one of my favorite teachers, and sitting on her desk with all of her stacks of paper was like wage, labor, and capital or like something. And I was like, what? They're reading Marx? She's like, yeah. I think she's a leftist. I can't tell. But I was really excited. I was like, where was this when I was in high school? So some teachers are starting. Yeah, I'm sure some teachers are, it's so taboo. They're so afraid of it. Communism.
Toby said, hey, it's been so long. Toby, it has been a long time. And you might have missed, but I've been sick. I've been so sick. It's been terrible. It's been absolutely, I've been hardly able to walk a lot of these days. Katie said, so yeah, Marxism always had a bad reputation. I didn't start understanding more until I discovered LeftTube. And for those listening on the radio side, you might not be as familiar with LeftTube or BreadTube. What is that, Anne?
It's pretty much like YouTubers, leftist YouTubers who create leftist content and talk about, leftist issues and ideas and, basically like anti-capitalist stuff.
Yeah, I would say
the best
that
way to...
it's what kind of characterizes LeftTube is it's a loose association of content creators who do video essays that are anti-capitalist and intersectional.
Much better.
Yeah, and it has to be all of those things.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I wouldn't say, you could be one of those things, but not the other things, and that just makes you adjacent to it. I wouldn't even put myself fully in it. I'd just say I'm adjacent because I try to do more philosophy than I want to be more of a philosophy coach than a thought leader. But it's
yeah.
I would say Peter Coffin, H. Bomber Guy, and ContraPoints, especially ContraPoints. Sean, they're the foremost known.
Philosophy too, did you say?
And philosophy too.
Yes.
They're the foremost known, yeah. Did I put an extra name in there who's not one of the foremost known?
So, okay.
I don't know.
Philosophy too, Peter Coffin.
And philosophy, yeah.
I don't know. They're big.
It was 4. I did it right. We can't count.
No, we can't. We don't do math here.
So Callie said, I've got, by the way, hi Callie.
Hi.
I've got Wage, Labor, and Capital and the Communist Manifesto on my bedside table, both partially read. Also reading The Conquest of Bread, Mutual Aid. Both of those are Kropotkin, and Custom Reality in You by Peter Coffin.
Peter Coffin.
What a I would call that like the leftist starter pack.
Really? I'm gonna take a picture of that.
Yeah, well, except there's a few that need to be added because NSP has the alt campus reading list.
And I think I have a picture of that.
That one would include books like Kill All Normies, Capitalist Realism,
The True
Life, Four Futures.
Yes.
ABCs of Socialism. ABCs of Socialism is a book that was a joint work between Verso Press and Jacobin. They got together to write this little book as a response to the 2016 election whiplash that occurred, where they were receiving so many questions about socialism that they decided, well, we have to put a book out. And basically the book is, it's meant to be super approachable. It's got these fun cartoons, and every chapter, the title of the chapter is just one of the most commonly asked questions that people ask about socialism, and they debunk a lot of BS there. But there's a follow-up, and I always try to push this too, and you can get the PDF for that for free online if you just Google it. But do read it in conjunction with Nathan J. Robinson from Current Affairs. Current Affairs is special article, Socialism as a Set of Principles. It's very important to read as a follow-up to ABC's Socialism because it was written as a sort of sequel.
Wow.
Because the one is more of a Q&A followed by, okay, well, now you know what socialism kind of is and what it is not, but what is it as a way of life? What is it as a set of principles? What does it actually mean? Yeah. Toby says Ollie is sexy and genius.
Yes.
Ollie is, for those who don't know, Oliver Thorne from Philosophy Tube. And it feels like he's really stepped up his game.
Oh yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And I've studied theater and I've studied some theater theory. And the last video, well even was the subject.
That was the Peterson one. Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh. That was incredible. And the lighting and the spectacle. He even talked about, I think, what, Brecht? Or like some theater theorist.
Yeah.
It was incredible, isn't it? And I think the new video is coming out soon.
So if it seems like what that channel, Philosophy Tube, is doing this year is there's kind of going to be some smaller video essays that aren't huge on production, but then there's going to be a whole bunch of these really big production ones. And so there was already the Steve Bannon one, and then there was the Jordan Peterson one, which makes it seem like he's giving this like he's got a bunch of people's names he's coming for, which has me really excited. And I really hope he comes for some of those other names because I was really glad he went after Steve Bannon. Jordan Peterson's obviously gotten critiqued from like every quarter at this point. People on the alt-right critique him. Everyone in left tube critiques him. The people in the mainstream try to critique him, but they don't know what they're doing because. But then, Steve Bannon is like this force that needs to be reckoned with, and it doesn't seem like people on YouTube had really taken him on yet on his own terms, and I felt like Ollie just destroyed him.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, and I'm hoping he does the same thing for Vox Day. I don't know if anybody else is familiar with that dude. In the chat, tell me if you're familiar with Vox Day, but it's actually weird because online, especially people who are trying to resist fascism, people who are critical of the new right, etc. I think they spend a lot more time giving people like Sargon of Akkad and Steven Crowder and Lauren Southern and those types of people who they pose as centrists, but in reality they're pretty freaking far right. They spend a lot more time critiquing those people than they do like straight up, hey, I am all right kind of people like Vox Day, and Vox Day is one of those people. And so I know a person who like ousted themselves recently on social media. Someone else, was messaging me like, you remember this person? They've come out as all right now. Yeah. And that person's like, oh, like, well, I just believe in truth, and I'm like, and so Vox Day is like their biggest influence. So yeah, see, everyone's like, I don't know who Vox Day is, but then they'll know who Crowder is. It's like, it's weird, but apparently he's one of the more he wrote the 16 Principles of the Alt-Right, which is sort of a founding document. So let's see, what else?
Leftist Ollie Thorne utterly destroys conspiracy theorist Steve Bannon. Yes. Thank you, Toby.
Do you kill Roosevelt? What are they talking about?
For those listening, we are reading some of the comments from the live stream.
But I don't want to just read them all out loud because they're not necessarily going to be all radio appropriate.
True. We're not allowed to use curse words on the radio here at University Pulse.
Is wanker a curse? It's not, is it? Steven Crowder is a wanker.
Haha, loophole.
True.
All
right. Well,
I don't know.
Well, there we go. That's enough for now. So anyway, it's Karl Marx's birthday. and we're here in the studio at Pulse Radio. This is also live streaming on the Theory Plebe channel. And
Subscribe, like, follow, and
I
subscribe.
think we should take a quick break.
Yes, I'm dying. I feel like I need to just cough and let it all out and blow my nose.
Oh.
You all didn't need to know that, but now you know.
There's a good question. We'll come right back to it. But yeah, we're taking a break. So
yes, we'll get back to
we're gonna play
questions,
a song and
we're
we'll be right
gonna
back.
play the
For those in the chat,
this song.
I'm actually gonna mute just so that YouTube doesn't take this video down. So we'll be right back. Push that button over
now
there.
We're back on the
Are
live
those buttons
stream.
all put? Oh, we're back.
Hello, internet. Hello, listeners of University Pulse Radio. We're back. It is Karl Marx's 201st birthday. Woo! So sad he couldn't be here to celebrate with us. We know he's here in spirit. And we were going to answer. So we just kind of been, for those listening, we've been going through the comments on this YouTube live stream, which is on the Theory Plebe YouTube channel. If you want to go join there, join the party, or give us a call at 208-426-1003 here at University Pulse.
Yeah, Steve, if
Radio.
you've got some thoughts you want to share, about Trump and congressional hearings, like it looks like you do, you could straight up call in. I'd love to have you call in. 208-426
1003.
1003.
Yeah, but anyways, I know that we had a question in the comments that we were gonna answer after our little break.
Was it Steve's?
Yes.
Yeah, so Steve asked a great question.
Sup, bro? What does Marx have to say about authoritarianism?
Great question. So the thing is he doesn't seem to be too concerned about authoritarianism. I think he sees it everywhere at the time, because liberalism has its own sort of authoritarianism, the enforcement of property for the capital class. That's what the military and the police tend to be the enforcers of, is making sure that there is a healthy, or at least a strong presence of people who are dispossessed of land or any kind of serious skills. So they are forced into wage slavery. And so at the time, his big concern was that we're celebrating, we have freedom of speech and freedom of property, but that's really being used against us, so that we can basically still play this game of slavery, but just with a few more steps. Now, that's about as much apologetics as I'll do. There's obviously like really authoritarian top-down control that exists in the name of Karl Marx, in the form of obviously Soviet Russia or Mao's China, or so many other cases. And there's the question of how much of that's necessary, seeing as it's in opposition. Everything they're doing is in opposition to a global capitalist corporate empire that is doing absolutely everything it can to make sure that no socialist or other even more communist alternatives are seen as possible. How much of the authoritarianism is necessitated by that, but I don't care. For me, I just would say that I'm against authoritarianism, and that I wish Marx had been more opposed to it. And I actually don't know, because I haven't read anything he wrote about authoritarianism, though I know that Engels wrote a short essay on it. So has anyone else added to this? Because I'm sure other people in the chat probably know more about it than I do. So no, and let's just leave it at that for now, unless someone wants to bring in some more. There was someone said, where is this one? Someone was saying, like, how do we make Marx more palpable for normal people who really don't care about politics and like going to hockey games or whatever? I don't know. And
oh golly,
I think you can like politics and hockey at the same time.
That's true. But at the same time, I've found that it's really, really hard to get like normies, and I'm in college right now. I'm experiencing all these college freshmen and college students. Like, it's really hard to get people to care about learning these things. And yeah, they learn about it in class, but I feel like people don't really get it. So yeah, like I don't know.
Well, this is the struggle. And there's not a one right answer, and every person who has any voice, who wants to be able to talk about any of these kinds of ideas, has to figure out what their own approach is going to be.
I mean, I feel like the left tube, even I feel like I haven't encountered videos about like Karl Marx specifically, because excuse me, so many people have said they've gotten radicalized through ContraPoints and through H Bomber Guy. And if those big platforms or even smaller platforms had some like entertaining video, like I feel like non-compete does a lot of like capitalist critique and talks about that, and like with like puppets and like Legos, so things like that comes up on someone's radar of recommended videos would be so helpful, and I don't see enough of that on LeftTube. At least maybe I don't have time to like go look at all of it, but things like that, or even books like the ABCs of Socialism that are just like so elementary that someone who really understands Marx would be like, this is dumb. But for people who, you know, where I was like a year ago, who had no idea, just something that is like very basic, what he said, kind of breaking down some of those stereotypes, and you know, the like would just be very helpful. But it is hard to get people to care about politics.
I would also add that for me, Marx is not the thinker. Marx is a thinker.
A thinker, yeah.
And that means that for me, my life project is not to popularize Marx in the consciousness of anybody any more than it is to also be popularizing Nietzsche and Darwin and Freud. And when I'm saying these names, I'm talking about their key insights that reactionaries, religious especially, have been responding to ever since. And that was, you know, for Freud, the key insight was a distrust of our own reasons that we give ourselves for things, the idea that we have an unconscious or subconscious motivators that aren't the exact things that we're giving ourselves reasons for why we're doing things. Darwin, the idea that we're not, that our essence was not existing before the creation of the world or whatever, that we are instead the product of evolution. For Nietzsche, the idea, well, anyway, but yeah, you get it. The point is that these different thinkers had key insights that people are still having to deal with, and and that's like the origin of critical theory. And with Marx, it's the idea that there are material conditions and power relations in society, and that those relations shape most of our life, but then we tell ourselves stories about why things are set up the way they. Well, we tell ourselves stories about why the world is the way it is that have nothing to do with those material conditions or those power relations. They're just nice stories, right? And so that's ideology in Marxism. The idea, I think that's one of the most useful things to think about, is just like, oh, you know, does this just sound like a nice story that we tell ourselves to distract ourselves from like the real and more pressing issues that are going on right now? And that's just an important question to always be asking. So, but like, let's use that to, well, and we can check a couple more of the comments before we do this. But one of the things that we'll be doing before we close out here is just kind of, especially for the listening audience on the air, who's like, who are these commies? Why are they talking about Marx? Well, I already said that my main purpose is not just to popularize Marx, but it is his birthday. So let's just talk about a few of the insights. Why is he worth talking about? When, I mean, and going back to I think it was Forrester's point earlier, with Jordan Peterson's recent debate with Zizek, you know, he completely misses the point, and spends the whole time critiquing the manifesto, which he read like a week before the debate for the first time. Yeah, and he just picks it apart. But it's like, yeah, you're picking apart a political tract, not one of the main theoretical works of this guy, and you're using it to debunk a living philosopher who's obviously like way more complex than the manifesto. But the thing I wanted to add though is that, you know, I disagree with Peterson on it like a lot, but a lot of the stuff he takes up against the manifesto is like, yeah, well, he's got a lot of good points there actually, but those aren't unique to Peterson. Those are just anybody who reads that nowadays in light of the 20th century will probably think a lot of these things. So so if the manifesto is outdated, well, then what are these important insights for Marx then? That's what we'll talk about. But let's do a little bit of the comments in here first.
Daniel S. said, contextualize it for their situation when talking about how to make Marx, you know, more approachable and more understandable for people who have never read Marx. And I think I definitely agree with that. I think just kind of putting it in terms of working class and workers and talking to people about it in terms of their own life, which I think like your time energy concept I mean, it's specifically Marx, but like is a way of making those concepts relate to the person. So I think, yeah, that's definitely helpful. It's like thinking about it personally and thinking about the implications of capitalism, like on a personal level and how it's affecting you or your situation or your family. And then bringing in some of those terms is like a really good starting point for some people.
Yeah, I would actually say that time energy, it as a concept, developed for me mainly because I read Marx, and then I read a bunch of existentialism and phenomenology, and so I was thinking about labor power in existential and phenomenological terms. And I'm not going to get into all the jargon right now. It's not important to what I'm trying to say. But I'm just trying to give credit where it's due. But that mainly like trying to convey my own experiences and trying to talk to other people about what seems to be some of the most important issues in their own lives or our life, shared kind of problems. Time energy is a really useful concept for that. And so yeah, that's a way of talking about some of Marx's key insights without sitting here and being like, hey, we all have to go back to Capital Volume 1,
Mm-hmm. Oh.
So
We're reading comments.
Steve's saying some stuff about Trump being a dictator. Trump. Let's go back up to it. Let's read it because we actually haven't spent any time with those ones, and it's probably actually worth it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I know there's a few people who are probably on the radio right now who are going to get triggered because we said something bad about Trump. But it's Marx's birthday, so
deal with that.
Deal with it. The fact that Trump is refusing all subpoenas is very concerning. True.
Everything about Trump is concerning. Also true.
Someone said something back to that, and then but a lot of what the media focuses on about Trump is hype. Refusing congressional oversight is a straight-up authoritarian move, in the same vein as ignoring Congress's constitutional powers.
By deciding to build the wall in violation of what Congress decided, that's never been done before.
Wow. Yeah. It's really the scariest thing about Trump is that he seems like a blundering fool or a petulant child who's going to force his will in every direction he can, and in doing so, he'll probably end up in pretty hot water. But we're also going to see he's going to set some new precedents as far as like what following presidents are able to actually do, and it's potentially pretty scary.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Steve says, instead of saying I'm a liberal, I say I want society to work for everyone. For instance, yeah, you're talking about doing, rhetorically stepping outside of people's boxes. We were watching the Justice Democrats new documentary last night. It's up on Netflix. It's called
Knock Down the House.
Knock Down the House. And
I totally did not fall asleep for.
And AOC is one of the four main people that they follow through their elections, and it's really cool. I was enjoying it a lot. But one of the things that she says I'm not left. It's not left versus right. This is down versus up.
Up versus down, yeah.
And it's like, I think that's really important. First of all, like that's the that's a political compass when you add the dimension of authoritarianism versus anarchism, and it's the dimension that the Democrat and Republican parties doesn't seem to care about at all because they're all up.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, rhetorically breaking out of boxes, out of people's boxes, and that seems like a really important thing. So let's go back to this idea, though. We said we were going to talk about some of Marx's main insights,
or at least like what we've gotten out of Marx.
I mean, yeah, because what basically his entire life project is a systematic and rigorous critique of political economy, and that's not something that anyone here can unpack. I don't know if Mikey, aka the Dangerous Maybe, is still watching, but he was in earlier, and he's got his own blog, The Dangerous Maybe. Check it out on Medium. It's awesome, and
Really
what he
good
uses,
stuff.
he uses popular shows and movies to unpack really complex ideas from theorists he's been studying for like the last 15 years. I think Mikey knows a lot of the kinds of theories he's talking about better than a lot of professors I've met who study these people supposedly full time. That comes down to time energy at the end of the day. Professors don't have a whole lot of that. They're taught in graduate school to gut texts, which means not really reading them in depth. And Mikey didn't take the traditional route through academia, and so he just spends, like 6 hours a day studying philosophy, and he has been doing that for like 15 years. And as a result, it's amazing. And he's finally started this blog, and I love it so much. So I promote it every chance I get. But the reason I'm talking about it right here is because I shared recently, and Peter Coffin also shared recently, one of Mikey's blog posts for Pierre Bourdieu's Forms of Capital. It's an American translation, and I shared that. If you go to the community section of my YouTube channel, you'll see it. You see it there. It's in my Twitter, but you can also just look it up on the Dangerous Maybes Medium. And the point I was going to bring up about this, though, Pierre Bourdieu is a French sociologist. He's heavily influenced by Marx, but Forms of Capital takes the analysis of capital that Marx starts, and he takes it way further. And it's really, really, really important. I would say that someone who cares a lot about capital, this is absolutely indispensable to them. But this American translation, it's an hour long. It's an hour long, and really the essay itself is significantly shorter, but that's because Mikey's putting it into the American translation. He's breaking it down into everyday speak. And the problem with that is that people have short attention spans, and they want it fast. But then when you try to give them the shorter condensed version, they're like, oh, what's with all this jargon? And it's like, well, jargon is basically like a zipped file on your computer. When there's a really big file and you've got to send it, you zip it, and it's like letting all the air out of all the balloons to put it into the box to send, and then the air gets re-added later. That's the unzipping part. That jargon is like zipping. And so when you're seeing a lot of words you don't know, or like really big words, that's what that is. It's like, this is condensed. If you want to break that down into plain speak, that you're asking for a book that's going to be 10 times longer. So you got to make your decision. And so when someone like Pierre Bourdieu writes that way, I just say thank you, and I hope that someone else will come along and make it more accessible for those who have an hour of time to strap in and do that. Steve says, eat the rich. I'm getting pretty hungry myself.
Me too.
And I've heard that that's the only form of ethical consumption under capitalism. But does that mean we eat Bernie Sanders? I hear he's a millionaire.
Oh, Lord.
That was one of the first things they hit. Actually, yeah, that was the first question in the Bernie Sanders town hall that he did with Fox. And he answers it great, which is just it's such a side point, really. He's like, well, I make like $500,000 a year, which is pretty good money. But the thing is like, when you're in that kind of a position, you need that money just for legal fees.
Yeah, for like, campaigning and things.
Yeah, but he's like, I'm not saying people should be poor. People are like, what, you want to be a socialist, but you have an iPhone? What?
Oh my God.
All right. Anyway, that was a huge tangent about the American translation thing, and just saying that we're not going to be able to break Marx down, obviously, in too simple of terms. I think that someone who's doing a great job of that right now is Radian Tupai on their channel. They did a series on capital, and they're trying to break it down, the most important concepts, and then into the simplest terms possible. But then they got a lot of feedback saying, well, this isn't simple enough. And so they're actually going to redo it. And but it's been a long time in the making, and I don't know where they're at in that project. I hope I hope they're still doing it. But I would just say, for me, the biggest realization that comes out of reading *A Strange Labor, Wage, Labor, and Capital* and *Capital* Volume 1 is just that human beings have a finite amount of time and energy, and that finite amount of time energy is valuable, and one of the reasons that is valuable, inherently valuable as a potential, is potential to do things, potential to build community, potential to produce culture, and potential to self-actualize and develop your own talents and skills. And so capitalism is based on the exploitation of human time energy into the privatized wealth of capital owners. And capital owners are not just like mom and pop store owners. They're not just, like, oh, you got a millionaire in town. No, it's not that person. We're talking about the people who make all the decisions in the world. We're talking about the people who buy out the politicians. We're talking about the people who work hand in hand with the banks. We're talking about the World Trade Union. We're talking about the big people you'll never get to associate, that 99% of us will never associate with. They're the ones who wield capital. And capital is inherently, on the one hand, resources from this planet, natural resources from this planet, and labor, accumulated labor from people who have been exploited along the way. And it's been condensed into the form of capital, meaning that now it's factories now that can be sold off and moved, or reinvested in other ways, and that's capital. And what's wrong with this is that a world where that is the founding principle, the central, that everything gravitates around. The problem with that is that our ability to build community, to produce culture, and to self-actualize is inherently fragmented and fractured when everyone's lives are revolving around work weeks where the majority of your sustained effort is going into other people's pockets, where you don't have any say in the ultimate processes at your work, where you don't have any ultimate say in whether the company gets sold off, when you have no real say in if people are going to be replaced by more machines, or how much more people are going to be paid if that does happen. You have no power. This is what is called alienation. You don't have any real ability even to take those skills and go do something of your own that would be fulfilling or self-actualizing. And the thing is like there's a few different reactions to this. The fascist reaction is to go back in time. It says, God and the king and the family have been, undermined by this terrible capitalism, and we need to go back to, we need to have a God and king again with a strong father. And
Thanks, Peterson.
That's the fascist reaction. Because a lot of fascists actually do understand that capitalism is bad in a certain sense. Their solution is just worse. But I don't have solutions. I just know that, like, for me, this issue of time energy is currently the one I've been focusing on the most, because any solution is going to have to factor in the fact that people don't just need more money in their weeks. We literally need more time energy. And when we say time energy, we also mean time with the potential for repetition. Meaning that it's not just here and there. It's not just like, oh, I have a week off every year or whatever. No, the 30-hour work week was a great idea, and we almost had that passed in the States thanks to the original May Day, but we actually didn't get it. Imagine how different our lives would have been if that had been the case. I say normalize the 20-hour work week. Like that's I don't care personally. I don't. On the one hand, whatever the solution is, whatever the solutions are going to look like, they're not going to be clean fixes, and they're not going to be perfect. But they're going to have to take account of expropriation on the one hand and exploitation on the other. And how you take care of exploitation is a 20-hour work week, and how you take care of expropriation, which is the robbing of natural resources and of unpaid non-economic labor, often childcare, usually women, is a change in the culture and the political economy itself that would make it so that the extraction of that kind of either labor or of that kind of natural resources is not unsustainable. It's not non-renewable, which is obviously like where we're at, and that's the most concerning thing about this form of capitalism that we're currently in, is the ecological critique and the crises that it's concerned with. It's terrifying. And
yeah, like under the current system, the way that things are going, we will literally not have a planet to continue this under in like 20, 30, 40 years.
Just a trash heap, just a despicable trash heap. It'll all that we have left.
So yeah.
All right, well, that was my rant. Anything we should add from the chatter that you would want to throw in yourself? Like I kind of gave my rant about why Marx matters. But
can't follow that. No, I'll just say, as someone who is newer to Marx than most people, than theory, than I'm sure most of you in the comments, is the ability to articulate the problems with capitalism and like just the basic, like fundamental inherent problems has been so valuable to me. Dave and I read Capitalism, A Conversation in Critical Theory by Nancy Fraser and Rael Yagi, which just like having like kind of that basic knowledge that I have of Marx and reading that and just being able to like understand all the problems, all the issues, ways that we might solve it, you know, like historical information, all of it. I just feel like in general like a better citizen who like understands the problems with our current system, and a lot of people don't want to learn about it. And so I think understanding like commodities and the fact that art, like literally like my labor, you know, when I'm working for Aramark making $8 an hour, like my labor is a commodity, and just being able to articulate some of those very basic things is just feels like amazing and feels like liberating in a way. And like, yeah, I have so much more to go and so much more to learn about, but just where I'm at right now is very helpful for understanding other texts and other problems. And like within my classes on campus, just like like I said before, I just feel so like ahead of the game, and like I'm able to absorb so much more and understand all of these systems and the problems and kind of start thinking about solutions and thinking about things outside of the system.
Outside of the, well, if we could just, you know, get rid of our guns and, you know, maybe raise the minimum wage and everything would be fine. Or,
everything
you know,
will be better.
Actually, why am I using Pearson voice for the typical Democrat? I don't know. Well, it's just fun.
It's a fun voice.
It's a fun voice. It's actually easier to talk with that voice right now with my throat.
Yeah, I know, right? But yeah,
actually, this is just my new voice now. Thank you, everybody.
When you talked about, Dave, like 30-hour and 20-hour work week, like immediately, I was in the middle of coughing. But what I wanted to say was exactly why does our value as human beings rest in, you know, how much time we have to work? You know, I'm a college student who has a passion for theater and wants to pursue that. But right now, like financially, it's hard to balance all of that. Why does it have to be that way? Why can't we live in a system where I can be an actress?
Everyone should be able to partake in theater and poetry and art, music. And you know, the whole thing like, oh, we're so much better off than hunter-gatherers now because we have medicine and we don't believe in you know, dark magic or whatever, is like, yeah, there's some credence there. I obviously don't want to get picked up and dropped in any other space or time of human history. Really, I'm not interested in being relocated anywhere. Like this is the world I'm used to, and I'm stuck with it, and I'm gonna, you know, live it out. And I'm not like an anarcho primitivist who's fetishizing, like, oh, if we could just go back to, following the salmon or something like that. But it's like, no, which obviously that's one thing if it's an anarcho-primitivist. It's another thing if you're an actual Native American. But the thing that I was going to say though is that we're so full of ourselves when we say that we're better off now. You don't have any way of really making the comparison, and you don't really have any way of qualifying life. And you say, well, twice as much life is just better. And it's like, yeah, twice as much life that is spent working 50 to 70 hour work weeks where you don't know your neighbors and you hardly see your children and you hate your spouse and you hate your boss and you are faking it in your church and you are alienated from your coworkers and you're alienated from the people that you go and try to blow off steam drinking beers with on the weekend as well. And you're telling me that that is a better life because it's twice as long as the people who all knew the same songs and dances and myths and poems and actually like worked together. And on average, like we're working like 20 hours a week when it came to like hard work in a year. I'm saying on average in a year. And then the rest of that time was spent doing cultural production, and a lot of the work itself was not work so much as like culture. And so, yeah, I don't know. I think the anarcho-primitivists do have a basic argument there. It's not like, oh, we should go back to that, but it's like
that's important. The
Yeah, that
development
extra-
of culture is so important, and what we think, oh, I have some time to do a play, or I like to play my guitar once a week, is not developing culture. It's not enriching yourself at all. And we could get into that like
Well, and
a
there's
lot
just
more, but
no, there is no, and this is, what are our shared, everybody in the group right now, what is our shared cultural reference points anymore? It's really difficult to nail down something that we all absolutely love, like a musician that we're all in love with right now. And that's just a sign of fracturing of culture. And it has a lot to do with the fact that we're so fragmented, and that has a lot to do with time, energy. And so if you didn't watch that video, then go do it. But I think we're about to wrap this down. I'm gonna do a quick run through of the comments while I'll let Anne
really
give
quick.
some final
I just gotta
thoughts.
say, Callie, thank you. I'm a big 1975 fan. Dave and I just went and saw them in concert last week in Portland. I think they're leftists. We talked about this last week. I think they're anti-capitalists, maybe, just based on some of the comments I've heard in the songs. But thank you. Also, who was it? Someone said they like your hat.
Mine?
Yes, yours.
Wow. Sometimes
I'm not wearing a hat.
True. No,
whoever said that,
that's not a hat. It's just your headphones.
Whoever said that, I saw you, and on Dave's behalf, I appreciate it. You're like,
I honestly just wear this hat because I don't know why.
It's a good hat. Oh my god, sorry. It's a good hat.
Okay, Steve, do not bring up Game of Thrones or Marvel. I'm gonna get out of here. I'm gonna stop the broadcast the moment spoilers start coming out.
Oh yeah, y'all. I'm not caught up on anything at all.
I'm trying to. Yeah. Okay, we're not gonna get into that.
We're not gonna get into that, but
that's too much. All right. Yeah. Well, anyway, everyone, happy birthday to Karl Marx.
Karl Marx.
I guess my parting thoughts is that, he is a philosopher. To see interest in Marx is to see interest in philosophers, and people who don't really know Marx very well, but like the idea of Marx, will often quote which thesis on Feuerbach is it? It's like the 10th or 13th thesis on Feuerbach, when he says that philosophers hitherto have only interpreted the world, but the point is to change it. And people use that as a cheap write-off of philosophers and philosophy prior to and after Marx, to be like, we should stop philosophizing and just change the world. But that's you're not being honest with yourself. You're not really. Go read Marx more, and you'll realize that's not what he's saying.
Yeah.
And let's just how about this? How about we say that is what he was saying? There's still the obvious fact that if you don't know the world you're in and you don't know yourself, if you're living the unexamined life, then when you try to change the world, you're probably going to cause more problems than you're solving. And so it's just one of those things where it's not, oh, we should stop acting and start thinking, and it's not, oh, we should stop thinking and start acting, but we need both. And that life itself is obviously always going to be kind of this bouncing between the two, a foot in each world. So in the memory of Marx, fuck yeah.
Fuck. We're allowed to say that on the radio, but we're almost done. What are they gonna do, right? You're graduating. What are they gonna do to you? So
I got written up for cussing online and or on the radio, and now I just did it again.
wait,
And then you literally
did?
Yeah, I didn't tell you. All right.
We'll talk about this later.
It was from when we did the time energy essay, because I dropped an F-bomb in the essay, and we played that on the air, and I didn't realize that was on there, and so then I got a message about it.
Who was listening?
We'll talk about it later.
Okay.
Anyways,
so I just want to say
that was an accident.
to everyone who is listening on the radio on University who joined the live stream. I appreciate you. I appreciate all your comments. Thank you for joining us to celebrate this wonderful day.
Steve, those better not be real spoilers. All right.
Get out of here.
Take care,
all right.
everybody. All right.
Bye. And
Bye-bye.
we're gonna